Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Galit Speaks podcast. I'm super excited to introduce our guest today. Her name is Jenny Lee. She's a life coach who focuses on building resilience in women by creating joyful morning routines. So many women wear different hats and are in a state of depletion and overwhelm. The morning routine is a time for self-love, healing the nervous system, and rewiring mindset so women prioritize their nourishment before serving the world. Jenny is also a teacher of 20 years. She is inspired to help women be aware of their own self-care after a realization of how her own lack of self-care had put her on the wrong path. After a few taxing life events, years of self separation, postpartum depression, and divorce, life directed her on the path of self care and self discovery. She uncovered her connection to happiness and inspiration through morning routines and self care embodiment. Jenny is now on the journey of guiding others to heal and reconnect with their dignified and highest selves through joyful morning rituals and self care. Hi, Jenny. I'm so happy for you to be here.
Hi, Galit. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited, and that's a pretty awesome introduction. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I like
Like
super
totally.
interested. Yeah, so I have a morning routine, and I know that especially my current morning routine is more of like a more recent addition to my life, but it has revolutionized it for me. So I wanna learn a little bit about what was your journey and how you got to this point and why you picked morning routines.
Oh yeah. Great question. Definitely. But it all started right. So I just gotta warn you that this is um probably going to be relatable mostly for women, busy women, and moms, because they're the ones who wear so many hats. And I could start with probably like, this period of time of my life when it was like the dark night of the soul for me, when I was just like so depleted and exhausted because okay, maybe background, something that's like, a little basic, like, for us to understand is that as women, there is this subconscious story that's going on within us. It's like coded for generations that, women, with all the kinds of pressures and expectations, to be everything for everyone. But then, oh, you should also look so pretty and feminine and, presentable, right? And bring honor to your family. And when you get all kinds of um, compliments, right? It's not because, oh, you like, you look like you're such a strong woman. You look like you're such an empowered woman. But it's like, oh, your kids are well fed. Good for you. It's like, oh, you're happy. Your husband, you're keeping your husband. Good for you. you know, it's at least that's a culture that I grew up in.
Yeah.
And although when I became a mother and I came to the US, like, I was away from the culture that I grew up in. Because, okay, I grew up in Indonesia. It's well, I guess it's the population, the dominant population is Muslim, and so they're very conservative. And then I also grew up within the Chinese family, which is also conservative, and also Catholicism. I went to Catholic church and Catholic school. And so all kinds of, oppression of like what women should be, all kinds of expectations and what I couldn't be. And that's what I grew up in, right? Like, what I couldn't be, what I should be. And my expression was limited. No, it was not even limited. It was nil. I was not able to express myself. And if I slightly express it, like I would be beaten back to that box of conformity. Yeah, that's what it is. And so as a woman, the expectation is, all right, of course, you should still be pure and virgin before before you're married, you know, and act feminine. You can't climb the trees, you can't ride a bike, and your body is not yours. Your body is for producing babies and to please your husband, to please your man, right? And we have been running this story for generations, pretty much, right? Because the generation before me, my mother, her mother was like that too. And so when I became a mother, like, for me to not sleep for 8 months and then felt exhausted and running on empty, maybe that's what I was supposed to do as a woman. I'm just going to keep going. And it's like, oh, I really, really need to take a nap now. But like, I would be such a bad mom for taking a nap or taking a massage or like anything to take care of myself. That's another thing too. Women are never taught to take care of themselves. They're never taught that they are the asset of the family. They are the asset of the community. They are the glue of everything that's going on around them, that is nourishing, right? It's like women are the soil of the earth. When you don't take care of the earth, if you don't take care of the soil, when you don't give it love, when you don't give it fertilization, nothing can grow out of it, right? And that's what the soul of the earth is, and that's what women are, the soil. When you put a lot of love, when you put a lot of attention, when you put a lot of nourishment to it, then all of these beautiful things will grow to nourish everybody around them, right? And that was what I didn't realize at that point. And so I was also working at that point, and I was also a mother, right? I would be working and I would come home and I would still be the cleaner and the cook and the homemaker and the caretaker and the teacher again for my son, that was like really young at that time. And so it was all just too much, but I felt like it was my responsibility and I should be like that anyway. And after a while running that story, running that role, it took a toll on me physically and mentally. And I realized that I would look at myself in the mirror. I hated myself. I lost all of my friends. I was confrontational. I was always having arguments. I was so reactive. I hated my job. I hated everything around me, right? And I was emotionally unavailable for my child. My child would, like my son would, was like, can you please read me this book? I can't. I just want to sleep. Like, can you please play with me? No, I just want to stay in bed. Just leave me alone, and then my students would tell me, like, would come to me, like, thinking that I'm so approachable because, I'm a female teacher. I was like, just leave me alone. Just do your work and let me do mine. Okay. Because I was just exhausted. And so that was the state that I was in, depletion, running on empty, which a lot of women, I'm sure, are. And so at some point, I did go on it did kind of end up on a divorce because nobody could bear me, including my ex-husband, right? And so divorce happened and I moved out of the house and I did go on a holiday. It was, well, I guess I could like, like the long story, I guess I could, tell you right now is that like somebody woke me up early in the morning because it was sunrise. And he was like, I was staying at a hostel. Hey, did you see that sunrise? And I was like, oh, it's so early in the morning. Okay, what's the big deal with the sunrise? And I would wake up. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is so beautiful. And so when everything was over, it was like, 10 past 6 or 15 past 6 in the morning. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm already up anyway. But then, something that I realized, because I woke up so early, that means I would have more fun things to do. I would meet more fun people. I would visit more places. It's like, oh yeah, like what do I have to lose, right? I'm already awake. And so that was how I ran the rest of my holiday in Hawaii. And then I would come back to Connecticut, where I live, back to the job that I did not like, and back to this heavy energy. Oh, I hate my job. Like, I hate my life, right? And it was 4:30 in the morning, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is just like so depressing. What do I do to make this feel a little better? And I felt like, maybe I could turn on some music. But you know what? Because there was a part of me that was so comfortable with being miserable, I had this war in my head. I don't really want to turn on that music because it's going to be so stupid. It's so stupid. Why would I want to do that? Right? But I pushed myself and I turned on that music. And then music turned on. It's like, oh, this is so much fun. I should probably move a little bit and dance to that. But it's like, oh, that's so stupid. That noise again in my head. Like, why would you want to do that? Like, you're going to look like a fool. Like, but it's like 4:30 in the morning. Who's watching me? Right? And this was like, in my apartment, like after I moved out. It's like, yeah, who's watching me? But then I had to keep on pushing myself to start moving my feet and my hips and my arms. And oh, this is so much fun. I'm actually enjoying myself right now. And things just got so much lighter. And I went to work. And then the next day, I thought, hey, what I did yesterday was so much fun. Let me just like wake up a little earlier so I could just dance to one song, 10 minutes, right? And so that's what I did. I woke up 10 more minutes, 10 minutes earlier. Like it's usually just like me brushing my teeth, take my coffee and rush to work, right? But that morning, I actually did something fun for myself. Then the next morning, I did the same thing. Okay, let me just try 2 songs this time because I'm having so much fun. And so a couple of weeks later, I added 5 more minutes. And then I want to do a little more of this. So 3 or 4 weeks later, 5 more minutes. So they became 20, 25 minutes. Then I added other things like challenging dance steps like salsa. On YouTube, there's like a 4-minute tutorial on salsa steps. It's like, oh yeah, if I do that for like 2 weeks, I'd be an expert, right? 4 minutes a day. And so what I notice after that is that I have so much fun in the morning. I generated this happy energy first thing in the morning, and then I would go to work. Before, like I told you, I was just not happy, and I was just like, doing my job, submit my lesson plan, tell the kids to do their work, take my paycheck and go home. And I noticed I actually was talking to my students like they're human. I actually had a conversation with them and I actually enjoyed them. It's like, you're so cute. How come I never noticed that? Right? Yeah. And I enjoyed my colleagues, right? So it's that change because I kind of like, change my mindset, like, starting really, really early in the morning. Like what your question was, why the morning? Well, I mean, like when I started that, it was more because I just needed something that made me feel better, right? So 15, 20 minutes and 25 minutes. And now it kind of expanded to 2 hours more of morning routines for me, because then I learned about breath work, meditation, and I also practice yoga and other challenges like inversion. It's all fun. And then juicing. But all of those things are so focused on myself. It's very nourishing and I find it fun. And I'm so excited to wake up to all of those things. So if you want to hear that from a scientific point of view, when you first wake up in the morning, your brain is in this state of delta brainwave. When that's the deep sleep brainwave. And it's also in between the theta brainwave. So when you wake up and then like you're kind of groggy, that's theta brainwave, and that's called the hypnotic brain state. So whatever you tell yourself when you first wake up in the morning, and in that state when your brain is the most impressionable and the most malleable, that is the seed that, you know, that's going to grow into a tree throughout the day. So when you first wake up and you tell yourself, I'm going to do something happy and exciting for myself, it's going to be a fun day, I'm going to do something fun for myself. How exciting is that going to be? And that's going to be a happy tree throughout the day, right? Or when you wake up happy, or when you wake up saying thank you or with gratitude, right? Like, oh, there's like so much beautiful things in this life, like, you know, that's happening. Those are the positive seeds that's going to grow into a beautiful tree in the morning, right? Well, you know what? The opposite thing is also true. Like if the seeds are the problems from yesterday, the problems from 10 years ago, you know, if you want to perpetuate that is, you know, also that becomes that tree of problems from yesterday, right? And so yeah, to answer your question, why the morning routine, that is because when your brain is on its cleanest slate, that's when you want to put the best seeds in there, so that it when you repeat that, when you keep on doing that consistently, that becomes your personality, and it becomes you on a longer term. You know what I mean? So I came up with a slogan that happiness is a habit, because I experienced it myself. Like, if you want to be happy, you don't just like, oh, I want to be happy, like, you know, I'm waiting for something to happen, like, you know, that's to fall on my lap. No, you need to start with a small step. Like, what can you do that makes you feel happy in this moment? What is the most fun can you do right in this moment for 10 minutes, and then 15 minutes the next day, 20 minutes the next day, and do that consistently. And then that becomes you. If you pick happy habits every day, even for a short time you know, during the day, like, you'll be happy. But it takes practice. It's a habit. Happiness is a habit. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, it completely does. And it's funny because my morning routine, I have never thought of myself as a morning person. And I am up now before my alarm clock every day at like 5:30 and I go out at 6:30. Like, I spend some time in the bed just kind of like being happy and present, and then I go at 6:30. By 6:15 I leave my house and start walking, and I meet up with like a walking buddy in the park, and we walk for an hour and a half in the morning.
How
And
fun.
yeah, and it's like, when I first started doing this, it was just to like walk and feel a little bit stronger and healthy. And I initially started walking later in the day, and I live in Arizona, and so it gets really hot during the summer and, you know, later in the day. And I had a different walking buddy at that time who was like, "Hey, do you want to try for 6:30 in the morning?" And I was like, "No, that sounds horrible. That sounds like the worst thing. That sounds like nothing I want to do ever." But that was the only time that they were available that day. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And that first morning was a little bit tough. I'm not going to lie. Like, that first initial morning was like, oh, this is a little too early for me to be like functional and like walking and whatever. But what's funny is, after that morning, the other person fell off and I didn't. Like, they just stopped coming to the walks. like something happened at home and they couldn't come one day and then just never showed up again. And I just kept going. And I decided to add things to it. So when I'm alone on my walk, so every morning before my walking buddy gets there, I have about 10 minutes of walking by myself. And I was like, I'm going to do like a 6-minute affirmation, guided affirmation meditation while I'm walking. And that started to hype me up. And then I was like, you know what? I have like this extra time and I'm waiting for this other person to come walking. And why don't I learn a new language? And so now I also do Duolingo, and I do like a couple of lessons if I have extra time. And I've made it into like this thing that I really like. Now I get up, like I wake up excited to go for my walk. And now I'm walking 5 miles a day and like loving it, because half of my walks, all of the walks in the evening that are by myself, are using a guided meditation. And like I'm really tapping into all of the things that I have been needing to say to myself but haven't. So I totally understand that. And like having it be the first thing that I do in the morning, this thing that I've decided to do to make sure that I am strong and capable and healthy, it has been life-changing for me, right? For me, it has just been like, whoa, like I am so freaking powerful. I am just like rolling out of bed.
Yes.
Like,
yes, that's what I'm talking about. Right?
Yeah.
You're
So,
excited to wake
my
up
language.
and you
Yeah.
feel empowered and you're excited to get up and all right, meet that joy again every morning. And imagine how healing it is for you, like, on a daily basis. And you keep on feeding your body and your mind that, oh, I'm doing what I love. I'm doing what makes me happy. I'm doing what nourishes me. It's like the dog, the people that I'm, all this environment that I'm walking. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And that you're saying, like, yeah, I say hello to a million dogs in the morning. I see lizards and hummingbirds and like all these like cool little creatures, and like it becomes part of my day. It's joyous. It makes me smile. And I'm so grateful to that person who was like, let's try 6:30, because if I would have stayed on my old schedule, I don't think that I would have continued to walk in the summer when it gets like it's hot here. So like by the end of my walk, which is around 8 o'clock, it's almost 90 degrees. And so
At
like
7 in the morning, like what time?
yeah, at 6:30 in the morning, we're like at 80 degrees. So like it's already kind of hot, but it's a dry heat and I love it. So I'm not going to complain about that, because I chose this, right? I used to live in New York.
Yeah.
And so New York was way too cold for me.
Oh, is there really? I mean, Connecticut. Right next door.
Yeah. So like, the winters are brutal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can deal with a really hot summer if my winters I can wear flip-flops.
Oh,
yeah. So like I'm super grateful that I started doing it at 6:30 and that I kept going with it, and have now found ways to make it even more joyful. So I found my thing just kind of by accident, just because I wanted to like move my body more. What is the best way for people to find what is the thing that will make them joyous in the morning?
Exactly. I'm so happy that you actually kind of like, found it, because it's actually a process for a lot of people. What exactly makes me happy? And you just kind of found it. It was like walking outdoors with dogs. That makes me the happiest. And more dogs and more dogs. Like, it's like, this is the best, right? Yeah, for some people, like, it could be going on Pelotons, if that, what makes you happy, right? It's like watching all of these cute instructors yelling at you. It's like, oh yeah, good. Keep going, right? And for some people, it could be walking outside, right, in nature, getting some fresh air, or yoga, or some 80s aerobics, whatever that is that rings a bell.
Yeah.
But I think it's that the body movement is really important, because it is how you move the energy. You have that intention. I want to be happy. I want to be joyful. And I'm going to create that joyful energy through the movement, through yoga. For me, it's the dancing. Because when I dance, I feel the freest, the music and the dance. Like, I would feel so excited, and it would just build up, and it would build on top of, like the layer before. It was like, and by the end of it, I would feel like my heart was going to explode, because I'm so happy. That has happened before.
Yeah.
But I want to maintain that energy. And so I would sit down and meditate and ground that happy energy, that joyful energy in my body. And then I would go out in the world with that. And road rage, bad news, negative neighbors, or whatever is negative around me just doesn't affect me anymore. As I work as a teacher, and how kids could behave or misbehave. And it's like, yeah, whatever. It just doesn't, like, I'm not in that controlling mode anymore of trying to control my situation, my surroundings in order for me to be happy, because I'm already happy in here, right? And so that's also the point that I wanted to make, is that because before, when I told you that I would wake up hating my job, right? Which is a lot of people don't like waking up to. When you wake up to a job that you don't like, that's hard. When you wake up to taking care of everybody else, but you, like, with a lot of women, that's hard. Yeah. But what if you wake up to something fun that you're going to do for yourself? And then, but you can start easy. Like, a lot of people would say, oh, I'm not a morning person. Like, oh yeah, I wasn't either. Like, oh yeah, trust me. Like, I would wait until the last minute to wake up, and then press the snooze, like whatever, right? Like, as many times as possible that I could.
That was 100% me.
Rush. Mm-hmm, exactly. Yeah. But
I had like different alarms set in like 10-minute intervals, where like the final alarm would be like, you need to get out right now, like right now.
Yeah. But what if that's something that you wake up to is something that makes you happy, that you look forward to doing, and then you would do it for just 10 minutes, and then just 10 minutes every day for like maybe a couple of weeks, and then you would build this positive association between your mind and your body to the new habit that you're trying to build, that you're trying to practice, right? Because now here's the thing: if you want to build a habit, if you want to start practicing a new habit, you need to make it easy. You need to make it simple. You need to make it fun. You need to make it rewarding. Because like, if you tell me to wake up 2 hours early tomorrow and go to the gym because it's, you're going to change your life, and like, all the motivational speakers would say, right? Like, you should be doing this if you want to change your life, you want to be millionaire, or like, whatever that crap. Yeah. But you know what? If you can't even get out of bed, if you can't even stop pressing the snooze button, like, how are you going to get to all of these things? And my bridge is make it easy, make it happy, make it fun, then like put yourself in that transition that is kind to your body, that is gentle to your mind and your body, that you like it, and then you want to do it again and again and again, then it becomes a habit.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's how it becomes you. That's how that is integrated into your life. Because like the shock of getting 2 hours, like getting up 2 hours early, that's not sustainable. I mean, yeah, that would last like 2 days for me. It was like, oh, and then you would judge yourself and you would feel bad. No, that's not how you develop yourself. You need to be kind and gentle and constructive, and that's how you do it in a fun way.
Yeah. So I want to know, since you've had this morning routine, I know you spoke a little bit about how it changed the way you interacted with your job and the daily stressors, but how has it changed how you interact with your son and your family?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like how family could always be triggering, like in the most unexpected ways.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I still am, but not as much, really. And it could be just, like me having a higher consciousness, I would say, or like a bigger awareness of this is who they are. And so I would accept them, more for who they are, and they're just being, because I think I have learned how to reconnect with myself. And through that reconnection in the morning with what I love, with what makes me happy, it centered myself. And because of that, like it's very healing. And another thing about healing is that acceptance is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, okay, when I start practicing yoga and I can't go far, I can't go as far as I expected, but you know what? It's okay. Nobody's watching. There's no competition here. And I'm doing great. And then maybe tomorrow morning I could do just 1 millimeter a little further. Right. And then, that's how you just like accept yourself little by little. And like, if in the process, something kind of came through your mind, because like you're in so much peace and anything could just kind of like running through your mind without you controlling it, and then you feel like you want to cry, and you could just cry without anybody judging you. And let it be.
Yeah.
Right. And you just kind of accept that whatever you're doing, you're just being. And that is the process of reconnecting with who you are, with who I am. And it is through that reconnection, I started to feel like, all of these aspects of me that I had never felt before. Right. Oh, wow. Or I've forgotten. Because before I was just, it was all like polluted by other people's energies, by all the negativities. And then you started to recognize that, oh, I'm actually a really happy person. I'm actually a very, like I'm actually really flexible. I'm actually like, so adventurous, in any like whatever movement that I've tried. It was like, you start to get to know yourself. And that's when the acceptance happens. And when you accept yourself, the more that you accept yourself, the more you accept other people. So
Yeah.
before, of course, I was just perpetuating what my family was teaching me, right? I was supposed to be this as a woman. I was supposed to be that as a daughter. I was supposed to be that as like, whatever, a member of society, like, to be acceptable. Yeah. And that, it kind of like, came to mind that, you know what? I don't want to do that to my son. I want my son to be accepting of himself as I have learned how I have accepted myself. And it's a wonderful thing to accept yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I learned like, oh wow, the way that I was raised. Of course, my parents were just, kind of like passing down on me what they have learned, from the previous generation. But I don't have to pass that down on my son. What I learned is that he is a beautiful, beautiful human being with beautiful nature, and he needs to nurture that and be himself, and and grow into an adult with all those qualities that he's already have, without having to suppress it and oppress it like the way that I was raised,
Yeah.
right? And what I need to do is just to encourage him to lean on all those beautiful characteristics that he's already had. And
Yeah.
so, but I won't have really learned that if I hadn't reconnected with myself and learned that about myself, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what the morning routine has taught me about parenting.
So I'm so curious, does your son have a morning routine?
um yeah, he would wake up earlier than me, actually, because he's a kid and he's got so much more energy. It was like, oh, I want to play. Can I wake up now because I want to play with my toys? And yeah, that's his routine. He just wants to play. And that is how I learned that, what? That's the nature that we want, all of us want to connect with, that playful nature,
Yeah.
and if we wake up when our brain is the cleanest slate and the most malleable, and we connect to that playful state, imagine like how much stress would be erased, because we just want to play. And everything that we do, we ask ourselves, how can we make this fun? Because that's what I notice what my son does. Like, when we go to a doctor's office and it's so boring because we're like waiting, right? And he just knows how to make things fun for himself. And that's the question that I keep asking myself. And I think, that miserable morning that I told you about, that
Yeah.
was the question that I had to forcefully ask myself. How can I make this better? How can I make this a little more fun? By playing the music little by little. But when you connect with that playful side of you, like imagine how happy you would be when you consistently practice that, right? Day by day, week by week, and month by month, and it becomes you. You're like, this happy, playful personality,
Yeah.
right? Like a child.
Yeah. And there's so many things with that. And I think that the biggest thing or the biggest issue that people face is what others say and
Oh my gosh, yeah.
what they have to say about how you conduct your life, what they have to say about what you're doing, what they have to say about how you're raising your kid, how you're spending your mornings, all of these things where like other people are inserting themselves into your life. So I
Yeah.
know that you say that boundaries are super important.
Yes.
How do you set those?
Okay. So when you are so used to feeling good because you've practiced that in the morning, every morning, consistently, maybe for weeks, maybe for months, and you would be more sensitive to things that don't align with your happiness. When somebody is being negative, you would be more sensitive to that because, oh, this doesn't feel right because the bubble that I've created is happy, from the routine that I've created in my life, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how I naturally created my boundaries. It is being in touch with myself, being in touch with what I feel is happy. And with, it's like, meeting someone, and you would start to feel their energy, right? Oh, like, this person kind of matches my energy, and he or she is happy, or they are happy. Let's play together. And then, oh yay, we have fun. Then we're going to continue being friends. And there could be another scenario where they would be complaining about something, and then another thing, and then you would be sensitive to that. And that's when you start creating your boundary, right? You're not going to people please anymore, especially me. I was raised to be like the ultimate people pleaser.
Yeah.
Right. And not anymore. I'm going to stick with what makes me happy. And if making friends with like certain people does not feel like it's right, does not make me happy, it's not worth it. There will be other people that I know will bring happiness to me. It will naturally, you will naturally build that as you build that sensitivity with your own routine, because you will choose only what deserves your presence, what is deserving of your presence, what is deserving of your attention, and what makes you happy. I think that's the biggest thing, right? Yeah, that's how I create my boundaries, just feeling it.
Yeah.
If does that answer your question?
Yeah. So there's another part of this, right? So friends, yes, I feel like it's very easy or easier to set boundaries with friends. But when it comes to family, and I grew up with somewhat similar background, very different, but also similar. I am Syrian Israeli. I come from a religious Jewish family. Uh, and I went to schools where, as a woman, I was programmed to be a baby maker and a housekeeper. And I didn't want any part of that.
That's
I
amazing.
wanted like the opposite of that. And I had to go outside of what was supposed to be my life path in order to find what truly made me happy. Um, so sometimes I feel like the hardest boundaries to set are the ones that you have to set with your family. Does do you have any tips on how to go about setting those boundaries? Because those are people you can't necessarily just like ghost them or cut them out of your life, you know?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. It was actually just recently that I felt like, before it would be just like a lot of head-ons, right? Um, uh, yeah, I remember having this argument with my father. It was just like a few months ago, right? Like on our different opinions. But that happens. But I feel that it's really important for us to accept who they are, that they are just being who they are. And I believe in this thing that is called the contrast. I don't know if you're familiar with Abraham Hicks, but she said, oh, okay, they said, like Esther Hicks, right? So like, she's a channel for Abraham, like, this being that they called. The contrast is like, the family, the environment that I grew up in, those are the elements that stimulated, that caused me to fire all of these rockets of desires. Because without being in that oppressive environment, I wouldn't have imagined a free environment where I could be myself, right? And so at least like, the only thing that I could do is to be grateful for who they are, because they're just being. It is how they're being that catapulted me to be who I am now.
Yeah.
Right. And then as for me to continue being who I am is to continue to accept who they are, And I don't always have to agree with you, but keep being who you are if that what makes you happy, right? But I'm just gonna keep being who I am. I don't know. How does that sound to you? Does that work? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it's easier for me because we don't live in the same country. They live in Indonesia, and I live here in the U.S. And I guess it can be kind of like annoying when I go and visit them in Indonesia, and they would be kind of imposing, like their beliefs on me and whatever. And I would just, a lot of times I would just go with it. A lot of times I would tell myself they are a different way of the universe expressing itself. They are a different expression of the universe, and I would just have to appreciate it. And this will be over soon. It's like that. But there has to be yin or yang, yin or yang, right? Because without them, I won't be here. It is without their beliefs, I wouldn't have had my beliefs, if that makes sense. And that's like the bigger picture that I focus on right now.
Yeah. So just appreciating who they are and what they've gone through, and understanding that your story is not the same.
No. Here's the thing too. Everyone is doing their best. That's what I keep telling myself. And everyone is operating on the level of consciousness where they are.
Yeah.
Right. And thank goodness, like I'm happy at the level of consciousness that I am, and I'm just going to go higher, and they will evolve too.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm just going to appreciate where I am. I'm going to appreciate where they are. They're just being who they are, and I'm being who I am. Let that be. Take a breath. Let that be. Oh, I hope that helps.
Yeah, I love that, because it's so true. I think a lot of the struggle that we have, especially when it comes to like our families, is that we are trying to change them, and we want them. I mean, a lot of times we just want them to accept who we are as we are. And maybe they're just not able to do that because that's not something that's possible for them right now. And a lot of the struggle is not recognizing that. And so if we recognize that and understand that they are doing their best, right? And they are operating on the level that they are able to operate on, that kind of frees you up to operate on your level. And I think the biggest thing for me is, with my father was physically and emotionally and mentally abusive. And one of the ways that I realized that I could forgive him was by thinking of him as having a sickness, right? Because what he did was a result of a mental illness, right? It was a result of, like, he's not mentally ill, but like it's a result of something that happened to him that traumatized him to the point where he could not express himself in any other way. And understanding that, just like I can't, be mad or angry or not forgive someone who has cancer, let's say, I can't be angry or hold on to this other feeling towards someone who had like a mental cancer, in my opinion. Like it was something that was eating him up from inside, or that is eating him up from inside. But that was the way that it allowed me to kind of forgive all of the things that happened and all of the things that were said to me, and not continue to hold it, because when you continue to hold it, right, it festers and it becomes your story. It becomes part of who you are. And I had to like learn how to say like, no, that's them. And I'm a separate person, and that's not who I am. And that's not going to be my story ever.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, I could also, as you're telling me your story and telling me of like, the kind of wound, that's also going on, right? Like, with all these different generations in the world. But what if we pose these questions to ourselves that our existence, like we exist right now as, all right, the new generation. And maybe one of the purposes that we have is to heal that wound, right? And maybe if you actually think about it, it is because of the previous generation that we exist. And then one of the things that we can do is to heal that wound. And maybe there's really nothing to forgive there, right? Because, okay, this existence, this is a manifestation of our soul, right? And we went through the previous generation to be here. And one of the things that we do is to heal, right? It's like, this is why you have the podcast, right? Is to bring so much awareness. And, with you telling your story and me telling my story of the previous generation, it's like, yeah, you know what? We are the embodiment of the next level of evolution. How is that? We are so much more evolved from the previous generation.
Yeah.
That's why we're talking about it right now, because then we can just discontinue that. Yeah. Right? And I mean, think about it. Is there anything to forgive? They're just doing their best.
Yeah.
Right? They're just toddlers, like in human history. And we are the adults, who can actually see that from the bigger picture. And wow, isn't that amazing? Right?
Yeah.
Like, we're living in this age and we have that awareness that we need to heal that. And, we could see their conditions, and okay, we could offer, love and empathy and sympathy. Yeah. And we're, kind of talking about that and share this, with your audience. What do you think?
Yeah, I love it. And we're coming up on about an hour. So I want to ask you, how do you work with people? So let's say somebody wants to figure out how to create their morning routine.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I give a 30-minute free coaching. At first, I just like to explore people. I just like to connect with people. So I'm going to send you my Calendly link so anybody could just chat with me and then see how they could improve their morning routine and how they could. But the biggest thing is like, how do you want to be happier? And morning routine is just a tool, really. But the biggest thing is how you can build that habit of happiness. All right. And yeah, and the morning is actually the easiest way of doing it because, of the brain situation. Yeah. And so, yeah, talk with me and see how we could improve your morning routines starting tomorrow. I would be so happy to talk with you. And find me on Instagram. I'm most active there. I'm at Sunny Jenny Lee, all in one word. And I'll also send you my link to my Facebook page. Yeah. And yeah, that's pretty much where I'm usually pretty active. And probably my LinkedIn, I'm not usually active on that, but I could try next time. I could do better. It's boring. I find LinkedIn boring for some reason. I don't know why.
I'm probably least active there as well. So
really? Okay. Yeah. Yay, thank you.
hard because it's very
transactional.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And if you're watching this on LinkedIn, like, hey, and understand why I'm not always responding. But yeah, it does kind of feel more transactional. It feels like somewhere I'd look for like a job or a new opportunity, which is amazing, but it's not necessarily where I'm at in life right now.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I guess I came to this understanding. It's fun is really what you want to prioritize right now, because when you have fun, you are present. When you're present, you have so much more to give.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you're having fun, you're happy, and when you're happy, you have so much more love to give, and that's when beautiful things are created. So yeah, that's up, prioritize that. And that's what I want to do. Really, I want to see my life as a dance. Every activity, like, right now, I'm having so much fun talking to you, and it feels like a dance. When you're dancing, you don't have to get anywhere, right? You just enjoying the dance, you're enjoying the connection, you're enjoying the conversation, and you're just like excited the whole way.
Yeah.
And that's it. You don't have to go anywhere, and that's when the magic happens. That's creativity.
Yeah, I love that. And just from like our conversation before this, before we went live, like, yeah, that's where I feel like I thrive the most, where it's just like wherever we're gonna talk and wherever we end up because that's where we were meant to be. I think
Mm-hmm.
we are programmed to put ourselves on like a timeline, or like it has to go a certain way, or a blueprint, or like this is the way that it should be, and this is the way that you should conduct an interview, and this is the way, but it doesn't have to be like that. And then sometimes the most beautiful things come out of things that you did not plan at all.
Mm-hmm. When you're just enjoying the journey.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So thank you so much for that point. It's like, when you're taking a holiday, right? You don't want to get somewhere when you're taking a holiday. You just enjoy the holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
it.
Thank you so much for being here. And if anyone is watching now or on the replay, if you're listening to this on Spotify or one of the other podcast outlets, please make sure to like, subscribe, follow, share, get this to somebody that you know needs it. Because I think that every single person should have a routine. And if you don't have one, please contact Jenny so that she can create one for you and she can guide you through the process, because coming from personal experience, it is not always the easiest process to do on your own, right? I have been through many variations of a morning routine before I found the one that stuck for me. And like some of those morning variations have been awful. And have been me
Yeah.
snoozing because I didn't want to wake up. So it's important, and it'll set you up for happiness and success in your day.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Yeah, accountability partners. That would, a lot of times you need somebody to cheer you up, right? Of course, but don't shame yourself for having bad processes. Everybody's learning, and
Yeah.
that's just a part of your learning process, and you're just going to move on to better ones. And yeah, just be proud of that. Cheer yourself up for having tried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much, Jenny. I really appreciate you being here.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. So exciting. I've just been enjoying it. So much fun.
Good. Have a great night, everyone. And I will see you next week for another episode of the Galit Speaks podcast.